So today I'm joined by Tim Mockford. Tim is a director and also the co-owner of Mockford and Hunt, a local estate agent based in Ashford. So welcome, Tim.
Yeah. Hi, Simon. Hi,
Hi,
how are
good.
you?
Yeah, thanks for joining
Yes.
me today. So,
Yeah, you're welcome.
so Tim, tell us a little bit more about Mockford and Hunt.
Um, well, we're a small independent estate agent. There's only three of us, Simon, that run Mockford and Hunt. And as you say, I'm a co-owner with my colleague, Francis. And we specialise in sales, don't do lettings or anything. Yeah, we've been around nearly 3.5 years now. All of the three of us at work have got background in estate agency. But Francis and I got together during lockdown, actually. We realised that we wanted to do something different than being part of that corporate life. And the long and tall of it is shortly after that, Mockford and Hunt was born, and yeah, loved it ever since, really.
Great. Well, thank you for that. So, look, so let's delve a little bit more, Tim, into why you set up Mockford and Hunt. You you said about 3.5 years ago.
Mm, mm.
Quite a challenging time to do it, sort of during COVID as well. But what? And you said you were
Yeah,
previously in a corporate life. So was that an estate agent
yeah,
as well? Or did you used to work?
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've been in the industry now for well over 20 years, almost 25 years.
Mm,
So that was my background in larger companies.
yeah.
And it was, there's a number of factors that kind of compounded. And it was just coincidental that Francis and I were, and it was during lockdown, we were still going out and doing the exercise we were running. And it was one of those light bulb moments where we sort of got onto the conversation about it. She was furloughed at the time.
Right.
Yeah, we were both thinking along the same lines for a number of different reasons.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, people say, well, it was a bit mad to do it during 2020 in lockdown, but weirdly, it was almost like a perfect storm because the market was it just accepted us immediately.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like a breath of fresh air. I know there's all these cliches that come out, but yeah, just certainly the best thing, for a number of reasons that we ever did. But I just think, I had all of these ideas that I wanted to do, and I didn't like the way that a lot of estate agency was going. That sort of corporate, heavily targeted. I just think that it's lost its way. Estate agency seemed to have lost its way in it, and it became more about profit and targets, and rather than actually looking after the fundamental factor of our business, which is the people that employ us to help sell their homes, really.
Okay. So you so would it be right in saying that you just felt that that you could do things differently, and as you say there, the industry needed a change, or had you always thought about being a business owner, or was it just something that you felt actually no, this needs to change, it needs to be done differently?
I think there's always a fear factor
Mm,
of going into business by yourself, and I had in my early 20s, I did dabble with it briefly, and it didn't really work out. And although it did it did teach me to appreciate that money's not easy to come by all the time.
mm,
But I think there was a number of reasons. I mean, particularly during lockdown, where we were working from home, and basically you were running the office in isolation by yourself.
mm-hmm.
Your staff had been furloughed. You were dealing with way over 100 phone calls. Bear with me 1 second. Sorry, I'm going to try and disconnect that phone.
That's okay.
I think you were dealing with hundreds of phone calls every day, and I just think I sat there one afternoon on the patio in a glorious hot summer afternoon and just thought, why am I doing this for somebody else? And also, the aspect of the estate agency that I always liked was dealing with people.
Yeah.
And like going around people's properties, listening to what they wanted you to achieve and getting the satisfaction from doing that. And as a manager for a corporate, I was spending more and more time in office dealing with internal issues, target setting, and sort of being a yes man for the managers above you.
Yeah.
And that's not why I got into estate agency in the first place. So becoming my own boss has enabled me to really reconnect with the reasons why I was, or why I love the industry in the first place.
Like it. Okay. Okay. And so you started out sort of 3.5 years ago. What so you mentioned a couple of things there that you didn't like, or you thought you could do things sort of differently. You wanted things to change.
Yeah.
So what makes you different to other estate agents then, Tim?
That's a really good question. I think fundamentally what makes us different is the way that we deal with people. So our reviews on Google or Trustpilot, you'll very quickly see a vein of similarity running between them in terms of communication and contact. And the stereotypical estate agent will sit in a high street office, work 8 till 5 or something. And I think the massive difference between us and a lot of agencies is that we don't have targets. So, I'm not saying there isn't a place for targets, but I think the moment you give somebody a target, and you make them aware of the consequences of not hitting that target, and obviously the positives of when they do hit a target, that target becomes quite consuming for them. And what comes out of their mouth then tends to be more beneficial for them. So if I'm sitting around somebody's house and I know that I've got a list 15 houses every month, my priority will be me listing 15 houses a month. That's it. Whereas actually, when I go around somebody's property now, my priority is that client. My priority is listening to them and working out what we need to do to help them. And I think that is what's been so well received with us, is how we deal with people on a human level, rather than see them as a statistic or a number. And I think then what comes out of our mouth, and a lot does come out of my mouth, Simon, to be fair, but what comes out of my mouth is going to be more massively beneficial to the client. And people aren't stupid, people will see that. And I always say, if I'm around a client's house, I can't get on with everybody, but I encourage them to trust their gut feeling. That gut feeling will tell them what they want to do. We all have good days and bad days, but I think ultimately where we are different is people see that sort of genuine desire for us to want to help people.
Yeah,
and I think that's what makes it about.
What I've picked up from what you sort of said there, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, is actually not so much about not having targets, but actually about making sure that actually what those targets are actually in the best interest of your customers. So it's not making the targets so that they're in the best interest of your business. It's making sure that actually any targets that are set, or goals, or whatever you want to talk to, or key performance indicators, or whatever you want to use. But actually that they're in the best interest of the clients rather than the best interest of the company. Because when you think about it, if they're in the best interest of the company, of the client, then that's actually going to ultimately relate to being in the best interest of the company.
Yeah.
So I think understood that correctly?
Yeah, I think that kind of instills a bit of confidence. I mean, like, for example, last year our sale conversion was the highest in the patch that we cover, which means actually we're more effective at selling our houses. So where that relates to the client, and I had a market appraisal this morning, or valuation, and I think where it relates to the client, it gives them that confidence. They want that confidence from you as an agent, that if they put their trust in what you're doing, if they place their biggest asset in your hands, they need to know that you're going to deal with it in a professional way. And actually, ultimately, they want to know that you're going to get a result. So in terms of the KPIs that you mentioned, those are important if it relates to the client. It's not important. There's only 3 of us that run Mockford and Hunt, and we don't need targets. So there are places for targets in larger agents. I get that, and I understand that. I do appreciate that. But like you said, that there's that fine line between what makes it relatable to the client and rather than the company.
So how do you? Because it's no surprise, is it? The estate agency sort of industry is very competitive. I'm sure there's you've got a lot of competitors in and around sort of Ashford, around your area. So
Yeah.
How do you communicate that point of difference to your potential clients?
I think, that's really difficult to do. But I noticed, even when I worked for the larger agents, that how effective or how successful you are is very much about you. So I can have the biggest technology, we can do the most amazing things ever, but people don't really care that much about that. They'll love it when you show them, and they like the sort of virtual tools that we do as well. So there is that sort of professional kind of aspect of it as well. But to me, as an individual, it's about, you've got a very short period of time to connect with that client, and that client has to engage, or they have to feel that you're engaging with what they want. And they're only interested in what they want. They're interested in where they're moving to. They're interested in how much money they can sell their property for. So everything that you say has to relate to what their wants, needs, and desires are, rather than what yours are. And I think to some degree, it's very easy to see in our industry that, if you invite an agent around your house, they've got their own agenda. Whereas actually, my agenda very quickly becomes what their agenda is, because they're trying to get to a destination, be it get the money in the bank from a sale, be it to move to a bigger property, be it move to a job relocation. So nobody gets up in the morning and says they want to put a house in the market. People wake up and say, look, we need to move, we need to find something bigger, we need something smaller. So I think for me, it's about connecting with that end goal, that end result.
Yeah.
And
So finding out,
they acknowledge that you're on the same length, and then as an agent, you become a vessel to get them to where they want to be, or what they want to achieve. And if you become a vital vessel in achieving that, and you explain how you're going to do that, then it's quite easy to gain their trust to be able to do that.
Yeah, so it's digging deep, finding out more about them, what they want to achieve, why they want to achieve that, and then helping them and explaining how you can solve that problem or help them to achieve that. And I guess there's two challenges there initially, isn't there? Because there's that first challenge of actually getting to speak to the client, being one of the estate agents that they choose to speak to. And then, so that's the first sort of obstacle or challenge.
And that's been the most difficult challenge as a new business.
I noticed from your, from when I was doing research before this sort of discussion, that you mentioned on your website that, and I'll read this. I think it says, that your vision is to provide the very best customer service to our clients, and therefore 60% of business comes from referrals. So what do you do in particular to encourage those sort of referrals?
To be honest with you, we don't really have to do anything to encourage the referrals. I think if you look after somebody, and again they see that genuine interest that you have with them. I mean, it's always, even when I work for corporates, that you're the mainstay of an office. So if you're running a branch and you provide a good level of service, it becomes about you rather than the company. But a lot of repeat business would come back to that office based on how well you did as an individual. So I think, what incentivizes, I've had a message from somebody this morning saying, my mum's on with another agent, and I've passed on your details. I say probably 60% is a conservative figure. I mean, we do referrals, so we use Amazon vouchers if you refer us to somebody that comes on the market, which is fairly industry standard, that you incentivize those people. But actually, I think if we didn't have those Amazon vouchers, I still think the incentive is, look, if I've got a relative or a friend and they're looking to sell, if I want that person to be looked after and I've had a good experience with an agent, I'm going to tell them to use the same agent that I had a good experience with, because I want them to be looked after as well. So that's the incentive, if you like.
Do you know what the, and by the way, I absolutely agree with you. Do you know what the biggest thing that I've found that has an impact on referrals? And that is asking for them. Most businesses don't actually ask for referrals. They don't say, and when I say referral, I mean asking for it in a very nice way, by saying something like, hey, Who do you know who might also be able to benefit from the great experience that you've had from working with Mockford and Hunt? You know,
Yeah,
that's just by asking, businesses then
100%.
tend to get more referrals. So it doesn't, as you're right, I don't think it needs to be Amazon vouchers or anything like that. Actually, just
No,
asking for
no.
referrals. Um,
I agree. Yeah,
yeah.
and I
So
think
what?
being a business owner, you know, I'm a bit more brazen in approaching. I mean, if it's even with our reviews, you know, I sort of we request from all of our sellers and buyers alike, you know, if you're happy to, because it's not about begging, it's about saying, look, we're a small business, we are reliant, and people, estate agencies change massively, and people will, like you, they'll research an estate agent before they even have a conversation with us.
Yeah.
So those reviews, you know, offer that level of transparency. They're a platform for people to share their experiences. And I think, you know, the Google reviews that we generate and the Trustpilot reviews are really, really essential to people picking up the phone and engaging in our services in the
Yeah,
first place.
it makes a big difference. And you know, it's amazing how much trust an individual puts in a review that's written by somebody that they may not even know, but it does
Yeah,
instill a level of trust in us. And
yeah,
again, most clients, you've got very you obviously give them good service, etc. But once you've done that, they're more than happy to give you a review. You know, it's just about saying, would you mind? It's actually, again,
yeah,
asking for it. But so
yeah,
what
yeah.
would you say your biggest learning has been since you've been in business, Tim?
Um, it's difficult to say because everything that not everything, because you know, as a business you kind of evolve, but I think a lot of it is trusting your instinct, and actually being quite brazen sometimes with people. But yeah, I'm going to be honest, Simon. I read that question. My biggest learning curve. I think it's about. Um, I think it's about cut through the waffle, really. Um, you know, as I said earlier on, I do waffle a lot and talk a lot, but at the same time, um, you know, we set out that we wanted to streamline what we do, and I think bearing in mind that there is only three of us, so you know we are got a smaller sort of gang than most agents that we compete with, but where our operation is so streamlined and I'd like to say fairly slick, um, that's that's what I'm most proud of, I think, and the service that we've been able to give and the feedback that we've received. But I wouldn't say I've learned a huge amount, apart from the fact that there's a lot of stuff from my experience as an agent that you don't need, but that's because it's your business and you're not part of that massive corporate hamster wheel.
Yeah. So it sounds like again, what you're saying there is just keep things simple, keep it straightforward, keep it to the point, keep it streamlined.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's okay. No, and again, I think that's great
I
advice.
think.
So what? Sorry, go on,
Yeah,
Tim.
I would say. Yeah, sorry, so I say one thing. I did this kind of before I had my own business, but I do it more so now. Is I never let anything get to a point where you don't want to deal with it. You
Okay,
know,
yeah,
inevitably there will be some negative issues come up. There will be some concerns or problems or something, but you deal with it straight away. And actually, if you deal with it straight away, and you explain it, or you're able to sort of give a reason, people are respectful of that. And there was a point, I suppose, at some point where you know you didn't want to deal with negativity, so you brushed it aside. But actually, by brushing it aside, it will only grow and fester and become more of an issue. So I kind of deal with everything as it happens, basically.
yeah, completely agree with you there, Tim. It's like you. And I like your analogy there. I share the same thought process. If you don't deal with those things, they just get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until they become a real problem.
Yeah,
An example could be an unhappy customer. And actually, if you deal with it straight away, actually, 9 times out of 10 you can overcome it. If you don't deal with it straight away, before you know it, they've given you a negative review that's gone all over the social media, etc., and it becomes a bigger problem. So yeah, I think that's great. So what about challenges? What challenges do you face as a business owner?
I think I think that the biggest challenge for us, and it still is getting through people's doors. Obviously, our business is based on the fact that we need to be invited out. So I think marketing is a constant challenge, because I thought, you know, coming from a reputation that of the company that I worked for, and the reputation that maybe rather arrogantly I had as an individual, I thought, oh yeah, I have my business and people would see me and source me and find it, and it just doesn't happen. I remember the first day that we sort of like turned the phone lines on, and like we had a big radio announcement on local radio, so some local media, and I think the phone rang once, and that was from somebody that I knew, who, or a friend of a friend that was on with another agent, and I was like, my gosh, this is not going to be like, you know, we go out there and put a few adverts out, and the phone is constantly ringing. And I think that's the other thing as well is you know, the phone doesn't constantly ring. It's not like, you know, when I worked in an office, you had 6 lines and they were just ringing all the time and it was hectic. It's not like that at all. But yeah, the biggest challenge was, I would say, is marketing and getting through people's doors. Not so much getting the instruction, because our conversion rate is quite high, but it is because people still say now, 3.5 years later, you know, oh, I've never heard of you, and it makes you feel like you're quite a small operation. And although physically we are small, actually our statistically, you know, out of the 22 agents that cover the patch, you know, we're sort of way up in the sort of where we want to be in performance wise. So yeah, marketing basically is probably our biggest challenge in getting through people's doors.
Yeah, and that's quite often the case with businesses, because when you know, when we go into business, we might be really good at what we do. Well, hopefully we are really good at what we do if we're setting up our own business, and that could be in you know, being an estate agent. It could be a plumber, electrician, a lawyer, a solicitor, you know, anything. But actually, even if we are really good, we've still got to get the clients in to demonstrate to them that we're really good, and then
Exactly.
and okay, then you might still be able to build up the referrals. But yeah, and so actually, marketing as business owners, we need to be good at marketing. Okay, we might outsource it or employ somebody to do it eventually, but yeah, it's a challenge and not something we always think about. So yeah, I like that. So look, there's one question, Tim, that I like to ask everybody on these discussions, because I've got an 18-year-old daughter. Okay, and I like to, obviously as a father, I like to give her advice. So what's the best advice that you would give an 18-year-old you? So if you could look back to yourself when you're 18, what advice would you give yourself?
I would say that just to get rid of the fear factor. You know, there's loads of cliches. It's just, there's hundreds of cliches, but I think just you know, go out there and do it, and don't be afraid. I think don't be concerned about what people think about you all the time. It's don't overthink, don't overanalyze. Just go out there and do it. So yeah, and you know, there's probably lots of other advice I would give my 18-year-old self, but not ones I would want to repeat.
No, absolutely, yeah. We'll keep those for another discussion.
Yeah, exactly. I yeah, put that down. But I would say, yeah, I mean, definitely just go out there, be you, and if you want to do something, there shouldn't be anything stopping you from doing it. And actually, in hindsight, you know, if I could go back in time, there would be hundreds and hundreds of things that I would do differently, even from a professional point of view. You know, never allow yourself to be intimidated by anybody, because you've got the right to stand up and be counted. And that's what I would, you know, that's one of the key things that I would say.
There's always great bits of advice that I get when I ask people that question, and I really like that one, Tim, in terms of and it reminds me, there's a great book, I can't remember the author off the top of my head, but it's Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And I like that, sort of feel the fear and just do it anyway. So thank you for that piece of advice. Well, look, Tim, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today and sharing more about your business, but also your journey as well. So thanks very much.
No, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.